winding path that has been laid, but there's a light that shines and will not fade. If you lose the light, remember what you know. You're not alone. Like a bird is in the air, like our roots pushing to the ground. Like a branch is in the vine, like our light doesn't make a sound. On a cloudy day last week I thought of this, how the good times make it worth the times we miss, and the love I have for you cannot be slowed. Oh, may you know that the love I have for you will only grow. Oh, may you know. Like a bird is in the air, like our roots pushing to the ground.
Welcome, everybody. We're glad that you're here with us tonight. Good evening. Thanks for joining us for this panel about how to thrive as a foster parent. We're glad that you're here. America's Kids Belong. Our mission is to dramatically improve the experience and outcomes for kids in foster care. This event is part of fulfilling that mission as we work to inspire, engage, and educate folks just like you to consider fostering and help close the large gap between the number of kids in foster care and the number of licensed foster homes. And we want to help current foster families foster stronger and longer. I'd like to share a few housekeeping things with you tonight before we dive in. First, please take a moment to review these slides that you've been seeing, which you probably already did. They share some info about our panelists here tonight, as well as some things that we're going to talk about throughout the night in our next panel. Tonight's discussion is being recorded, and it will be shared on social media and other public platforms. Thank you for so many great questions that have already come in. We will answer some of those during the question and answer portion of the night. Others have been answered in previous panels, and upcoming panels will hit on some other topics. And then in the follow-up email that goes out, we will connect you with some resources to help you with the questions and to check out our website and our YouTube channel to keep learning and hearing about all kinds of good things going on. You also can submit questions through the Q&A button across the bottom. Uh-oh. So sorry about that. Okay. So you can submit questions through the Q&A panel button at the bottom of there. It's separate than the chat button. So just know that across the bottom. And we will pick some of those to answer at the end, as well as some of those will be getting answered live, depending on the types of questions that are up there. Please check our homepage at America's Kids Belong for all the upcoming panels and different things going on. Our next event is just 5 days away, and I really encourage you to try to attend that one or to share it with your friends as well. On Tuesday the 26th at 7:30 Eastern Time, we will be talking about caring for sibling groups and other pressing needs in foster care. This is such an important topic that we all should be informed about. Did you know that half of siblings get separated when they enter foster care? learn what it takes to keep these children together and to help every child find a safe, loving placement. We'll also have a panel on October 11th on different ways to engage in the foster care system. At the conclusion of tonight's webinar, a survey will pop up. We'd be so grateful if you take a minute and provide some feedback for us that we can create more of these events and really start to make sure that we're improving this for you guys and hitting everything that you would love to hear about. Lastly, look for an email following this program with links and resources, including the recording from tonight, to help you take the next steps in your journey, which I truly believe it's a journey as you get involved in foster care. And now I'd like to introduce you to Travis. Travis is our storyteller and grant writer with America's Kids Belong. He is also a foster and adoptive dad himself. So Travis, are you ready to kick off this panel with some good questions?
I'm ready, Tracy.
Go for it.
All right. So yeah, thanks for joining us tonight on the topic of thriving. Whenever I hear that I'm introduced as a storyteller, I just always go, how am I not sitting in front of a fireplace? So I just have a blank wall tonight. So we'll just use our imaginations. Wanted to announce a really cool thing coming up. Also, as another kind of resource is that just for those of you guys that, there's so many great questions and there's so many specific questions and, it's hard to tackle all of them well, or even to hit them all. As Tracy said, there's a lot of resources America's Kids Belong does have, we can point you to, but we want to try like a pilot, sort of a support event where you can sign up and hop on, and possibly some of the panelists on tonight will join for that and just kind of have more of a discussion around some of your questions that we can answer together. So look for that in an upcoming email. I'm going to introduce the panelists tonight. So below me is Danny Smith from South Carolina, who's a former residential foster care program manager for many years and currently a strengthening families teacher. And the opening song is from his band Wasper Jaws. So check those guys out. Also to his left, Terry Gray is from South Dakota, who's a single foster and adoptive dad who really has a heart for older guys that are aging out of the foster care system. And then to my lower right is a colleague of mine, and Tina Bauer from Texas. She's a former foster youth and adoptee, and she's the current manager of social media for America's Kids Belong. And so she's going to have a lot of keen insights tonight on just what it's like to be in foster care and kind of how that relates to thriving is what she's seen. And then top right, Bobby and Courtney Williams are from Colorado. These guys have fostered over 50 kids and are also adoptive parents to several kids. Courtney is a foster family recruiter at Colorado Kids Belong, and both of them are just outspoken advocates and just great supporters in this space for foster care and adoption. So also, I just noticed this, which is funny. So everybody's name, it either ends in E or Y. So it's like Tracy, Bobby, Courtney, Danny, Terry. I mean, Christina might have been Christy. I mean, I'm the only one out here. So I'm kind of thinking maybe there's some kind of pattern of thriving and having your name end in Y. I don't know. That's the first lame dad joke of the night, and there's more to follow, I'm sure. So as we move on here, I'm going to set up the kind of just the topic tonight of thriving. And I feel like this is a big topic. And I do feel like, foster parents can sort of interchangeably fall into three categories when it comes to thriving or lack of thriving. And I think so we can go back and forth. So this is kind of the framework I'm using tonight, and that we're going to kind of see the lens of the question. So I actually think that some of us are simply lacking resources and community support. We could be thriving much more, but it's a matter of isolation. Maybe it's a matter of we just aren't resourced enough. And we see that with attrition. It plagues foster care. 50% of foster families nationally, the stats show, quit after year one. And there's good reasons for that as well. This isn't a guilt thing. Some adopt, some just do this for a season, and they give everything they have to be a sustainable place for kids in foster care. And that's not wrong to give a season. But systemically, that domino effect of attrition causes more instability for kids. There's more disrupted relationships, new placements, academic setbacks. I mean, it has far-reaching things. So anyway, we think that can be shored up and fixed some with resources, and even tonight. Some of us, I want to say, are actually thriving and we don't realize it. That's more of a paradigm shift on what thriving is. So maybe tonight we'll see more that thriving is maybe measured more in terms of direction and growth, not so much in terms of speed and results or immediate results. And then lastly, and I think some of us just need to give ourselves permission to step out. Again, no guilt there. It could be burnout. I've seen some other foster families that it was just too long. They gave everything they had, probably were in it too long. And at that point, they were the ones really being affected. And of course, the kids in their care, when you're not at your best. Some of us, like I said, it's a season of fostering. So, and then for some of us, there's other ways to engage foster care. And maybe we tried being foster parents and we just weren't wired for that. So I think what we want to celebrate tonight is just self-awareness and going like, even if I'm stepping out, let's celebrate that. Let's celebrate that when we're doing it to take care of ourselves and ultimately for the best of the kids, that's also a win. So the very last thing, and we'll all get out of the way here, is that I want to say that I know your questions really spoke to this, but there's an elephant in the room with foster care and thriving. And it really is this idea of navigating loss. It just, as biological parents, hard enough as it is with just tough, teenagers and what it's like to be a parent, but the added effect of additional probably trauma in a lot of cases, and then having kids continually leave your care, who you've loved, who you've gotten so attached to. I mean, that is devastating. We talk about, some people are like, I get too attached and that's why I wouldn't consider fostering. And we'd say, well, they deserve only people that get so attached. They deserve nothing less. That's where their healing happens. But let's also just not dismiss that as, while we're being that place of healing and stability, we're getting wounded in the process as they're leaving and we're grieving. And so let's not dismiss that. And so I think finally, let's kind of the undergirding question in all of this will be a little bit of this idea of ongoing relational loss and how do we sort of navigate that. It's always in the background. That is the reality of being a foster parent. So anyway, that's the setup. We're going to get right into this, and hopefully our interactions will be enlightening. So kicking it off, I want to just throw out to you guys this idea that fostering is hard. You can't thrive as a foster parent unless you're thriving personally. It starts with us. What are some basic ways we can take care of our own needs so we aren't running on fumes and depleted?
I'll go first. Sleep. I find with teenage boys, sometimes I just need that time, whether it be if I get off to school, like I might just need a little nap, which I've never napped before. But with that much work and stuff, sleep is important. Maintaining friendships. I know it's like, I don't know. I don't want to compare it to like a needy girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, but where you kind of lose your friendships because you're so focused on that one thing. And I think with foster kids too, it's the same thing. Yes, you want to spend lots of time with them. You want to focus with them and nurture them, but you need to maintain that friendship too to thrive with the friends you've had in the past, with your family. So just maintaining relationships rather than losing relationships because you're so focused on foster care. And just like I said, sleep is important.
What else?
Yeah, I'll add a very obvious one is hydration and nutrition. I don't know about you guys, but I know as a really busy mom, oftentimes I'll get up in the morning and I start going. And then I'll blow up on the kids and look at the clock and it's almost noon and I haven't even fueled my body yet that day. So sometimes I literally have to set a schedule like on my phone of setting the times to eat so I don't forget to fuel myself. Or like those hydration bottles that, by noon, I'm going to drink this much amount of water. Because it's proven that hydration and nutrition affect our emotions and our behaviors, our kids, but also in ourselves as the parents.
That's good.
Yeah, alongside that, I come home from a day of work and she hasn't realized where she's at with her nutrition or hydration, or perhaps she can sneak in a nap, which I don't think that's ever happened, but hopefully I can. But I mean, if you're married, or if you have a partner or roommates or friends, whatever, in my case, her and I are married. I come home, and in order to help us thrive, I just literally have to, tune out the day's work and survey what's going on. If I pick up cues from her, I just need to be willing and ready to step in and give her the ability to go for a walk. I don't know, or go get that snack. Give her time to go grocery shopping by herself, anything. And I just think that's been something that's been fairly important to us. In times of escalation, things that have given us the opportunity to thrive, and us and the kids thrive, is we've either given each other the look like, hey, I'm almost over my whatever the word threshold here, or we have a long time we read a survey and someone said that they used the word pots. It's that might be a dangerous word in certain states, but they used it. It's stop backwards. So they threw it out. They're escalating, and they would just randomly say pots, and oh, that's my cue that I need. And the kids would have, they're like, why'd they say pots? But magically, mom or dad kind of came in, and one stepped out, one stepped in. So just being open and available to help each other thrive in partner situations has been really helpful for us.
My daughter has this thing where when she's got new friends or new adults in her life, she calls it they're acting professional. And I think what it means is like we're not quite comfortable with each other yet. And I know a lot of times when you have like a new person in your home, especially for certain personality types, you just kind of always feel like you got to be on your best behavior and everything has to be going well and perfect. And I have to act a certain way. And that can be exhausting for people. And so I think trying to get through that stage of fostering, getting to that level where you're a little bit more comfortable with each other, that can just help the home feel more restful, not just for you, but also for the kids that are in your home. So I think, using self-deprecating humor sometimes, humor in general, but just getting to the point where you're just enjoying going about the day with the kids. That's you're not carrying around so much weight. And again, it's for certain personality types, maybe that's easier. But it's kind of like having a guest in the home for the first little bit. So getting past that, I think you can get to a more just restful overall state.
It's really good. Tina, do you want to add anything on that, or?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm not a foster parent, never been one. But as someone who was in foster care, like would, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to know that my foster parent was either had a friend that they could confide in or was attending some kind of therapy. I just believe that that's so, so important. You're human and you're experiencing the trauma secondhand that the kids in your care are. And if you're not taking care of your mental health, like I believe that's when things can go south. So I think that's really important.
That's great. Yeah, really good, you guys. And just sort of the theme seems to be a lot of it's just awareness of little things that we take for granted otherwise. I mean, think of things basic like hydration and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, but to put that at the forefront, and yeah, I think that's really helpful. Moving on, so sort of gonna, as we move then outward, there's a beautiful line I love by a poet who said, "How could I have come so far and always on such dark trails? I must have traveled by the light shining from the faces of all those I loved." I really think that line captures what it means to be in community, what it means to be seen, what it means to be known, and what it means to lean on each other. So, question for Bobby and Courtney. We know thriving really just can't happen in isolation. We need community. So let's talk about a little bit about how to create or find a supportive community to lean on, and maybe a little bit about wrap support and what that is.
Yeah, phenomenal question. I think for us, it breaks down to probably two major things in our minds: the community you already have prior to foster care, and then the absolute need for community within the fostering world once you get into it. So from there, I think we'll break it down a little bit.
Yeah. So thinking about like the community you already have, thinking about your family, your friends, your next door neighbors, your coworkers, those people that you're already in community with. A big thing is, first off, it's okay to ask them to get trauma informed. It's okay to say, hey, can I have a little meeting with you? Can I teach you a little bit about what we're entering into or what we've been into? It's okay to talk to them about attachment. It's okay to talk to them and say, hey, these are some appropriate questions that you can ask, and these are things that are not appropriate. So a lot of times, like, you might already have this community that wants to support, but they don't necessarily know how to support you. So a lot of that, the first layer is breaking down like what is going to actually be supportive. And a big part is, what is attachment? What is foster care? What is appropriate? But then like the practical side, right? And that's when you can't be afraid to ask. I mean, I know most of us in this realm, people ask if they can help and it's like, oh, I've got it. Right. But you really have to break down those layers and say, you know what, it's okay to ask for help and people want to help, but I have to give them practical ways. So if you are around a church community, a faith community that has a wrap ministry, get involved, ask them to wrap around your family. If you're not, my suggestion would be either ask your church or faith community if they could start one, or if you're not part of a faith community, that's okay. It doesn't have to be within a faith community, asking your people. And what WRAP stands for, it's the acronym WRAP. So it's words of encouragement, respite care, caring for the kids, helping you with childcare, acts of service, and prayer. And again, you don't have to do all of those things, but using that model to say, hey, I need some of these things, or maybe all of these things. And again, you might have to be the one to go out there and search for that, or say, hey, my community that I've got, I need this and I need you. And I'm not going to be successful without you helping me. Here's the framework. Again, America's Kids Belong has that framework laid out already. So feel free to email somebody and we can help you with it. But again, just don't be afraid to ask the community you already have to get involved in your life.
Yeah, super good. And then as far as adding foster community, guys, we couldn't emphasize this enough. It's not something that I would say you can chalk up like, oh, I might need it. We really truly see this as it's a necessity. You will need someone and hopefully a few people that you can simply just talk to that seriously do, I'll kind of air quote it, get it, right? That you can foster talk with, someone that you can just vent to, that's a good listener, that isn't going to give you all the answers or try to solve the world's problems all in a conversation. But this is something that unfortunately we really see as a huge need, but you can't necessarily just Google and say, hey, where's my added foster community? I need them. They're not going to show up at your front door unless you kind of set the initiative. In our case, for me, oftentimes women or men, we get overlooked. The women are always good at book clubs and going to coffee and getting together. They're great at it. But us guys, for whatever reason, it's like, oh, that's weird, right? And I've just had to get over that. One thing that's been really successful for us, for me and other foster fathers in the past, I've just thrown out a text. I just go through my phone book and said, hey, I'm meeting next Wednesday, 6:30 at such and such brewery. Let's just come and chat. And sometimes I get 2 guys, sometimes there's been 20, and we just show up and talk. And it's that added community is a super huge thing. But if there's a charge out there with it, is you gotta sometimes just go and force that. And it could start with the community you already have. Those people could turn into great respite providers that are both right on both sides of the spectrum. And then as you meet people and as you go to your WRAP ministry or your faith communities or your work and you start talking, take the initiative and throw the invites out. And I'd go on record saying, I think you'd be shocked that people will show up, even guys. But you have to get creative. Sometimes you got to throw in a hot dog or a beer or something, but they'll show up.
Right. Yeah, it usually doesn't take much for us, but that's a great point. And just, the idea that you're saying, be proactive, but also don't be, surprised either at what starts to happen and form, and that your community, it sounds like you guys are saying, can evolve to and change, but like you said, it is a must, dudes. It is a must, like you said. So yeah, thanks for that. Let's move on to this sort of paradigm shift. Now, a great definition I saw of thriving is the idea of to progress toward a goal despite circumstances. So the idea that, thriving doesn't mean things are always easy or smooth, So how should we understand what it means to have a thriving foster home? You know, what are some maybe paradigm shifts or ways to relook at what thriving is?
Travis, we've talked about this a lot, so I do feel like a paradigm shift is in order here. Um, to me, the two goals that you should be thinking about is, does this kid feel safe, and do they feel loved? And if you're doing those things, like, I think we get caught up in how the day to day is going. Did they listen to me? Are they behaving well? Those are issues that are going to slowly improve, but you don't have any magic touch or anything that can undo some of the things that they're coming to you with. So having that as your goal, that every day goes perfectly and you get along perfectly, I think it's the wrong goal. But we can only control our own actions. So I think at the end of the day, if you're thinking, did I make them feel safe today, and did I make them feel loved, then to me that's a thriving foster home. And all this other stuff about how they behaved and how I feel about them and how they feel about me, that's all secondary. That stuff can all that'll happen long term. Maybe even not while they're in the home with you. Maybe never. But if you've got a more simple, straightforward goal, then I think you will feel more like you're thriving, and it will take pressure off of you, and it'll take pressure off the kids too.
Yeah, speaking about that pressure, I think for me, a huge paradigm shift. Sorry, the lighting was great until we got on camera. A huge paradigm shift for me has been, we go, I'm sure every foster parent hears it at least once a week. You guys are so amazing. You guys are awesome. Your family is just amazing. I can't believe what you're doing. And that puts so much pressure on us when we take those things and start to believe them, or feel like we have to live up to that. Like, I have to pretend like I'm amazing. I have to live up to these things that people keep telling me. And it's just not true, right? Like, I'm not saying you guys aren't amazing. You guys are great people, right? But we don't have to live up to the standard other people are putting on us to be great foster parents and to thrive as foster parents. So take off that lie of feeling like you have to put on this show, have it all together, have your house spick and span, everybody looks clean when you're out, and whatever it means, but that's just not reality.
Right. Good point.
I think for years, you and I have kind of, I can't claim credit for this, but it's been a term that Courtney and I have fallen back to for quite a while, and it's called living the interruptible life. And it's just that pressure. I mean, we've had to learn that whatever you want to call it, the interruptible life, rolling with the punches, just not putting yourself up to the pressure of being perfect or structure. But until we learned, and we still are learning, that we just need to be ready to live that interruptible life, so that, to Danny's point, those kids feel loved and they feel precious and they feel safe. And it might mean you didn't do your chores. The house is a mess. The dishes just didn't get done. You made a fool of yourself in the middle of a grocery store because an interruption happened, right? At the end of the day, it just is what it is. And it would truly go along the lines of how do we help the kids and ourselves thrive, living in that interruptible life, because you will be interrupted. And I think all you guys would attest to that.
Yeah. Great wisdom there. And it's looking at, I think, the long game, the big picture, what's really happening. And there's so much, like you said, Danny, too, that we won't see, maybe we won't ever see and know, but it's that being there and being a presence. So moving on to the next question, and some of these, hopefully this doesn't feel like it's too quick hitting on these questions, but have some really good ones, and just really want to get some wide ranging perspectives, because thriving is such a big topic. So really want to move on to Tina, who, as we set up before, spent some time of her life in foster care and had far from a healthy experience, was actually abused in foster care. So as someone who had that experience, what is your message, Tina, to prospective and current foster parents when it comes to things like self-care, emotional awareness, other things that you kind of want to have to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, kind of just like following the previous question about like, what does thriving look like? I really liked what Danny said about like, do the kids feel loved and do the kids feel safe? Because we're gonna remember that. we're not going to remember if your house was clean, and we're not going to remember if, like, that's what we're going to remember. And so I just think that is so important to like boil it down to those simple things, because like someone said, like if you hit that pressure on yourself, like the kids are going to feel it too. And then that's what they're going to remember. And that's not what you want them to remember when they leave your home, or if they stay in your home. But to the question, I guess my message to prospective and current foster parents is, we really need to do away with this idea that thriving as a foster parent means saying yes the most times to placements. To my story, I was in a therapeutic foster home. So what that means is the kids that were in the foster home with me had like really high needs. Like one of my foster sisters was blind, like just different needs. And so when foster parents are licensed to be therapeutic and offer that extra medical support or whatever, they are paid more. And so that's kind of where my story came out of. I was in a therapeutic foster home, and my foster parents just kept saying yes and yes and yes to placements. And you can only imagine how bad that got. If you can imagine saying yes and yes to normal placements, and then you think about the high needs ones, and it just created a very chaotic and unhealthy environment, because they were very, very stretched thin and also doing it for income. So I think, to circle back to the message would be like, this is not a competition. This is not like who can say yes the most amount of times. This is not about, I mean, to be fair, like it's not about you, like it's about the kids. And I think if we keep in mind that it's about the kids, then I think, we'll be better at keeping ourselves in check and understanding that if I stretch myself too thin, like I'm not going to be able to be what the kids need. And I think that as a foster parent, you walk a very fine line between helping the kids and unintentionally hurting the kids. And I think that if you're a foster parent who is experiencing burnout or has experienced burnout, like you would know exactly what I mean. Because you know that when you're burnt out and you stretch yourself too thin, you are not the kindest person. And kids in foster care, when they enter your home, they're in a very vulnerable space. And, their brain is not functioning how it should be. They're feeling physically stressed or anxious, and they're just very, very vulnerable. And unfortunately, those types of things can have a lifelong impact on them. And that's what I have seen in my life from being abused by my foster parents, was just being in that time of crisis, and then experiencing the abuse and neglect when I was supposed to be receiving love and safety was very, very disorienting for me. It made me question whether I should have just been left with my birth family. So, just keeping yourself in check and understanding that it's not a contest, and you can take it one placement at a time. And if you do one placement well and you love the child and provide a safe and healthy environment for them, like that's thriving, that's being successful. And even if you just do it once, like that's good. Like I don't think that you should feel ashamed for doing one and done. So
Yeah, well, I really appreciate just bring us into some of your story, and we're all words can express the sadness and all that you would have faced as a child going through that. So thank you for sharing that. Some really good points there. I think, and this kind of pivots to our next question, you had a line that it's not about you, and which I agree with, but I think that where there's a little bit of tension that kind of pivots us into the self-care is that, it's the motivation isn't about us, but in order to be healthy, that's where some of us get in major trouble, is that we're not caring for us. So there's kind of this, balancing act between true channeled compassion for the kids and ultimately for them and their care and well-being. But if we are not taking care of ourselves, we will, it's gonna have a horrifying effect. So with that in mind, Courtney
And
kind of,
that's, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and that's, what I said earlier about like therapy. Like I want a foster parent who's taking care of themselves to care for me when I'm in crisis and my life is falling apart. Like I want a foster parent who is healthy, because if they're not healthy, like it's not going to be better than where I was. And so I think it's important for foster parents to take care of themselves, like you said.
Yeah, no, that's, I love that. And I think I've heard you say before, which I love too, is just that, even when you're, and that's where I think self-awareness comes in, but like, even if you're not blatantly abusing, I mean, just not being at your best and recognizing that can still be causing damage and being a destructive place, not a safe and healthy place, and that's what we want to be. So love to talk to Courtney a little bit about just kind of resources, kind of pivoting into resources that do come to mind that are accessible and ways to really help yourself, but ultimately also help the kids in your care. Just take us through some of those if you could.
Yeah, so a really easy one is your county, your state has ongoing hours that you need, right? And so they provide trainings. The challenge that I would give to every foster parent is to seek the things that you need, right? It's really easy to be like, okay, I need hours. I'm going to just jam pack some panels in. I'm going to jam pack things in, but actually seeking the things that are going to help you to thrive, the things that you need, the things you're struggling with, the things will help you be that thriving foster parent that the kids need, as Tina was just describing. So what are the areas where you need growth? And it's okay to even approach your county and be like, hey, I'm struggling in this area. What resources do you have? What classes can we have? Or can we put on a class in a certain area, right? You can ask for those types of things. So not being afraid to ask. And then there's some obvious ones I think a lot of people know of, the late Dr. Karen Purvis. But a little tip for that, like they used to have these lecture series on DVD. That's kind of old school now. Now they're downloadable. But we used to literally put those DVDs on and just have them on all day long. Like literally, they'd just be on in the background because we needed to hear that language over and over and over. And even our biological kids needed to hear it over and over and over. And the other kiddos needed to hear it over and over and over. Like the more we're immersed in it, the more we're going to actually be able to do it. Right. So it's different to go to a weekend long seminar and then go home and be like, oh, I've got so much to work on. But then to actually be able to do that, again, you need to hear it over and over. So put on those videos and just let them play in the background. There are a lot of great parenting classes. Okay, I've got to move. Sorry. This Colorado sun is getting really intense at this time of day all of a sudden, I guess. Sorry, but I forgot where I was.
Playing videos in the background? No.
Yeah, there's classes, right? Like Bobby and I are Cultivate Connection parent trainers, parent facilitators. So what that means is Empowered to Connect is an organization that has this course called Cultivate Connection, and it's 18 hours over a long period of time, but 18 hours of learning how to bring the TBRI, which is trust-based relational intervention practices, into your home. And the other thing is you're with other foster and adoptive parents that get you, and you can talk and form those relationships. And it's not the only one. There's a lot of resources like that. So the biggest thing is you have to find those things, right? Sometimes your agency or county may be like, here's a list of resources. Some agencies don't have that. And so you might have to go seeking it. And the other amazing thing, if you're in a state where AKB has a presence, we have our new foster friendly app. And to be able to pull up that app and to look at what are the community resources around me? What are the events going on? What are some businesses that are offering discounts to foster homes? To be able to pull that up and see it all on the app, it's pretty awesome and pretty amazing. So again, you might have to go looking for it, but be willing to do that.
Very cool. Yeah, I love that. And Tracy is going to talk a little bit more about the app later. Courtney, let's shift to like just great stuff for parents. What about kids? Resources.
Yeah, so we all need to recognize that every single kid that comes into our home is experiencing some sort of trauma because of the loss they're experiencing, right? Every kid. And then you add on, if you look at the ACEs and you look at the stat that kids in care are experiencing 5 or more of those ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, that's a lot of stuff that they've got going on. But every single one of them, at least the loss, right? So recognizing, we firmly believe every kid in care needs some sort of therapy. Now that therapy might look different for different ages, for different needs. But again, I'm going to say, as the foster parents, you often have to be their biggest advocate. I know that mental health facilities, mental health professionals across the nation are over capacity. They have waiting lists. I don't know if we've had a foster, well, that's not true. Now we're doing therapeutic and they get into things pretty quickly, but without that label of therapeutic, they're on a waiting list, right? And they could be waiting for a long time. So as a foster parent, you might have to go back every single time the caseworker comes to your house, every single time the guardian ad litem, you talk to them. Where are they in the wait list? Hey, how's therapy? This kiddo really needs therapy, right? And just helping being that advocate for them, because they are experiencing trauma from one degree to another, and recognizing that you can't do it all, right? To thrive, you have to have other supports. And for us, a big support is some therapy services that kids will need.
Very cool. And definitely another thing, I think we kicked the panel off also saying that, America's Kids Belong has some great resources on the website. And again, after the panels, you're going to get an email, and hopefully we'll try to link definitely some of the resources, maybe even mention, but pointed out tonight. So we're going to kind of go into the final home stretch here before we engage some of the live Q&A. Moving out of that sort of resources, and then now sort of moving into this space, I guess, of where we're integrating stuff together as a family, and maybe even using our resources and walking that out. There's a great line, and I just think this is so true of thriving, by the writer Walker Percy, who said, consciously cultivate the ordinary. And I think so much about thriving and just parenting is that, the ordinary, cultivating that. So this is to all you guys. What are some healthy practices and rhythms that just will help you and the kids in your care thrive? And this is for everyone, but I'm going to go with Terry, if you got anything first.
Yeah, I think it's a open and honesty, be really open and honest. I feel like a lot of times when they come into foster care, they're especially with teenagers, they're not given a lot of detail of what's going on in their life. And we get the email initially, and then we get the file, and they don't even know half of what's in there, and it's, so I think part of it is just having an open and honest relationship right from the get-go, just so they build that trust with you. And the one thing I think is important too is, especially when a teenager comes into your home, is I know you want that child to be kind of like like you're raising your own son or your own daughter, but they've been raised in a different way. They have things that they've already so for me, it's been adapting, like one of the first kids I had was so big into anime, and not my thing at all, but but now that's something that I've had to become interested in. And sports was never my thing, but now I have season tickets to the local basketball, G League team, because that was their passion, and I've learned to adapt. They've kind of taught me to learn to enjoy these things that they've enjoyed in their lives. So really learning from them rather than me learning, kind of raising me in a way, is how it kind of feels, because I'm adapting to their way of life instead of them adapting to my way of life. So, and I think the structure there really works really well.
What else comes to mind?
Something that comes to mind to me would be to not be afraid to check in with them frequently when they are not escalated. Oftentimes we're busy parenting the behavior, right? Because it's there, it's loud, it's coming with symbols. But take advantage of the times when you don't have that, and check in with them, get to know along what Terry's saying, get to know their mode of communication, what makes them the things they like. Learn how to play anime, play basketball, go for a walk with them. And you might not necessarily have to go for a walk and have this scripted conversation ready. Just go for a walk and you'd be amazed what happens. But the big take home that I would just say up front is just be ready to check in with them. Be willing to check in with them when things are calm. I think that would help a lot.
I think that's great advice, Bobby. I think when I hear you say that, not when they're escalated, I think it's such a great opportunity when they do become escalated and they do have behavior outbursts and things that are just a really difficult night. It's really hard, but it's also a great opportunity for you as the foster parent to show them what you want to be true, which is, I'm still here for you. I still care about you. You're safe with me. I'm not going to hurt you because you chose to act like that. And another thing that comes to mind, that when I worked with kids in foster care, I feel like the first day or two are so important. And you really want to go out of your way to show them that you're safe. Little things that I think of are like asking, can I give you a high five? Is it okay if I pat you on the back before you touch them and feel like, oh, come here and give me a hug? Even if they're real touchy feely with you, ask their permission before you do things. Little things like saying, this is your bedroom, I'll never come in without knocking. Just showing them that you're safe, and reassuring them, because if a kid doesn't feel safe, it's going to be really, really hard to get past those difficult moments, and they're just going to have a hard time behaving and thriving in your home if they don't first feel safe. A couple other small things that come to mind: be open and quick to praise them. A lot of these kids haven't heard much praise, so look for ways that you can praise them. It's really easy to point out everything that kids are doing wrong, but look for things that you can praise them for. And even if it's not perfect behavior, maybe it's a little bit better than it was yesterday, and you can notice that and show them, I notice when you do things well. And that'll also get you more of that behavior, but it just shows them that you pay attention to them, and it helps with the rapport.
And going along with what Danny was just saying, a big thing is not taking their misbehaviors personally. Even if it seems like it's pointed at you, it's not about you, right? And so recognizing that and going hand in hand with that, a big thing is, I feel like we often set our expectations way too high, and then it leads them not to be able to thrive, but also us not to be able to thrive in supporting them. So set expectations and make them achievable so you can give that praise and they can feel success, and then you can keep moving and building it from there, rather than setting it so high so that they feel like failures, and then you're getting upset, and then like the ball just keeps going, right?
I love that.
Yeah, I would say, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I would encourage you to like just listen to them. I was talking to my mom the other day, and she was like, whenever she talks about foster care adoption with people, she always says like, I wish I listened more. And listening doesn't necessarily mean like talking, but like writing letters or just things like that, figuring out how to communicate with them. But yeah, I really liked what Danny said about like making them feel safe, and like that physical touch, permission, and things like that. That's so important. I remember my parents doing that with me, and I was like, really? An adult is doing that with me? Like, okay. Like it made me feel important, and like I was actually a person. And I don't really remember feeling like that.
Tina? Frozen?
I think we lost her.
Sure. Well, until she comes back, anyway, she's making a great point, and I think reinforcing what Bobby and actually the rest of you guys were really saying on just the importance of just listening, and these small things, taking a walk, praising the things that, the little things. I love too, I think a cool wrap on this segment to me is sort of and I think Courtney alluded to this symbiotic relationship on thriving. Like when, they're not thriving and struggling, and maybe we're negatively reacting to that, and then we kind of get in the spiral effect. And so, kind of, you've all touched on kind of how there is this, like Terry, you talked about like learning and being taught from them. I mean, there's this beautiful picture of like, we're working together, like, and we're in this together. So I'm hearing back from Tina right now. She's okay. She's going to maybe be joining us here in a second. So moving on to the final two questions, and then we're going to get to the Q&A, the live Q&A. Kind of back to you, Danny, of, you know, you've educated, especially you've kind of come with a little bit of a different angle tonight than some of the other guests, where you've actually spent a lot of time educating foster parents and looking at, you know, sort of what's been difficult behaviors to kind of coach towards and how to best handle. What is your advice to the foster parent out there who just feels like, you know, kind of their experience of foster care is, and I'm always trying kind of things, and I'm just disheartened feeling that I'm just not getting through. Just, you know, everything I'm trying, it's not working, not getting through. What's the message there in thriving?
Yeah, I love the quote that you said. I don't remember it exactly, but cultivating the ordinary. Every day that you get through as a foster parent with a foster kid, and you make it through that day, that's a big success for the kid. If they're in foster care, they don't want to be there. They've gone through trauma, like we've talked about. They're in one of the lowest points of their lives, and it's just up to us to make them feel safe and loved. And I've said that a lot tonight about feeling safe and loved, and something I think that maybe I should have focused more on, and that we should focus more on, is, do they feel like you like them? If they don't feel like you like them, that they're going to give you a reason to not like them. And so you've got to look for ways to like the kids. And some kids are going to come in, you're going to bond, they're going to be easy, you're going to think this is so great. And other kids, they're going to be tough. And a lot of times what I've seen in my experience is that it's a little bit of a lot of a defense mechanism on, I'm going to make it to where you can't like me. And that way I feel like there's a reason you don't like me. So we've got to get past that. They've got to feel safe. They've got to feel liked. They've got to feel loved. But if you're doing those things, and again, going back to some of the stuff that we all said before, if you're praising them, if you're not taking their behavior personally, if you're making them feel safe, if you are trying to be involved in their activities like Terry talked about and learn from them, if you're doing all those things and you just feel like this kid it's not working, what am I going to do? I would just say, just keep doing it. A lot of times it's a time thing. One of the most meaningful things for me has been kids that I've worked with. I think of one specifically who I worked with when he was like maybe from 9 until he was 13. And we butted heads so often. And we had a lot of great times, but he was stubborn, I was stubborn at times. We just butted heads, and I got to see him grow up. He joined the Marines. He's out of the Marines now. He's got a job. We went over to their house and had a little cookout. And I think what I've realized having that perspective is all that little stuff doesn't matter. How he felt about me, there were times he said he hated me. There were times he did hate me. None of that stuff matters in the end. It's were you there for him? Did you get up the next day and do it? Did you not give up on them? And so that would be my message. It's so easy to say when you're not going through it. I've been there. I know how difficult it is to go through it and get up the next day and try to be your best. It's one of the hardest things in the world, and we'll not be perfect at it. We will fail at it. Be willing to apologize to them. Let them know, I wish I hadn't acted like that yesterday. I could go on about this for a long time. I'll wrap it up, but just knowing that all these little things that stress us out day to day, in the end, it's not going to matter. I think Tina said it well. It's how we made them feel. Did they feel safe? Did they feel loved? Do they feel like I like them?
Yeah, it's great reminders. And point of emphasis before we close, kind of the last question out here. Tina is back. So did you want to add to what you were saying about healthy practices before you disappeared? Can you hear?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Yep.
Okay, all right. Sorry, my entire street went up. I have no idea. No, I think I was done.
Okay. All right. So final question for a couple of guys on the panel, Bobby and Terry. Just kind of looking at, we've kind of mentioned this already some, and it's kind of been highlighted a little bit, but just how can things like humor, just lightheartedness and just having fun, where does that go with things specifically in kind of this aspect of healing and promoting a thriving home? So Terry, if you want to kick that one off first, and we'll end with Bobby on that question. It's about.
Yeah, for sure. Especially right at the beginning, right when they're placed in your home, just having some type of sense of humor, just to break the ice, that initial awkwardness. It's always rough, but just and being lighthearted about it, and explain to them, yet it's awkward for both parties. So just bringing some humor into it really makes it a lot easier. I find too, with a lot of the teenagers, with past trauma and stuff, with even with punishments, kind of bringing it up, humor. One of our things that we do is, like, if they get in trouble, it's basically helping me around the house or helping me work in the yard, and so kind of my way of humor with them is like, oh, that's great. Let's do that again tomorrow. I want you to get in trouble because then you get to help me. And just complete sarcasm a lot of the time. And it really does make me feel comfortable and safe that way. And because so often when they're used to getting punished, it's not like that. And so I find even like the hard thing, bring humor into that, it just makes it a lot easier, because whether they used to be emotionally abused or physically abused for punishment, just bringing some lightness to, yeah, you did something wrong, but we're going to get past it really quick. And so those are the two main times I guess I bring in a lot of humor, is those two instances right at the beginning, and then when there's trouble happening. So
Cool. What about you, Bobby? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, man, I love this question, because I'm really, I try to be really good at it, but I'm convinced that all kids, I don't care how old they are, all kids like silliness. They love to laugh. Laughter is super therapeutic. It's fun, right? And I'm pretty sure one of Danny's prescriptions for parents has been take a chill pill. We all need to. Is that even a saying anymore, Travis? I don't know. I just brought it up, but
I mean, sure, yeah, let's say it is.
all right. You just, like Terry said, just to learn how to go with the flow, and even in moments of corrections, to end in playful engagement is huge. It just allows them to kind of, in a sense, as best they can, take a deep breath. And I'm convinced also that it helps them see you, that you aren't all structure, you aren't all brass knuckles, right? And that you're willing to just be silly. You're willing to go out there and put yourself out there, and at the end it helps them grow trust with you. It just does. I don't know the scientific talk behind it, but I've seen it for years, that if you're out there playing games with them, joking with them, jabbing with them, like Terry said, hey, do that again, that was awesome, we're going to get a lot done at the house tomorrow. Yeah, you might get the crazy cool popular eye roll, but you're being silly with them, and it's taking that veil off of them and those layers that they need to in order to heal and thrive. And it's just going to help around the house. So I love the question. Everyone out there listening, don't be afraid to take that chill pill and laugh, and just make light of situations when you can. It'll go a long ways, Travis. So thanks for asking that. I love it.
Can I say something about that, Travis? I'll be quick.
Yeah.
Just in everything we've talked about, like, I want to encourage people, you will get so much more by offering, but first of all, by doing what these two guys have talked about, but by offering rewards than trying to consequence kids out of doing things. And this whole, like what we're talking about, it reminded me of when I worked with some boys at one point. We had a weekly pillow fight, and they had to each of them had their own thing they had to do to earn that pillow fight, and they could call each other out. It was this whole thing. But if they met their goals for the week, then they got to pillow fight me. And I think that's something I remember, they all remember. It's like one of the greatest times of my life. And it's like you got to come up with little things like that in your home to motivate. It doesn't have to be this big like stuff like that. This question makes me think of it because it's just silly things like that that will motivate them to do well more than anything else. So I had to add that quickly.
Yeah. I love all those. And yeah, Bobby, yeah, I love the just energy you got from that. And you know, clearly that even just shows in your face that that's such a huge part of what you bring to the kids in your care. And if the phrase "take a chill pill," all of a sudden we're starting to hear that again. I mean, I'm crediting you on this panel.
He brought it back.
He brought it back. I mean, so I mean, just look for it. It's gonna happen. But but yeah, that was really good. And I mean, honestly, just as a dad, you know, just hearing this stuff tonight and thinking back to stories of working with kids in foster care, but just now my own kids, you know, that, you know, we've adopted and our bio kids, like so much of this stuff is so applicable to just any of us as parents now. I mean, I feel like I want to watch this again just for myself and, you know, just parenting as a dad, you know, like all this stuff. So cool. Tracy,
Hey.
you are back. You got it from here.
All right. There's lots of good stuff there. Thank you all for sharing so much wealth of experience and knowledge. So, real quick, Courtney touched on it, but I just wanted to make sure everybody knows about the Foster Friendly app. So you can download it in app stores. It's called Foster Friendly. It has our logo on it, so you'll recognize it. It's a great place to find resources in the area. I encourage everyone from the actual foster or kinship parents to caseworkers, CASAs, everybody to download it, because I think that people that are providing support to foster and kinship families, they can help point out the good things that are out there for them as well. So it's got businesses that are offering discounts for foster families, as well as faith communities that are doing some kind of support for families, and that they're trauma trained and things like that. And then also a collaborative space for other organizations that are also serving those families as well, and also listing events on there. So one of my favorite features on the app is actually the map view. You can click and go into a map view and see all the different things going on. You can zoom in. I'm in Colorado. I could look and see like, oh, what's going on in Denver, and find out what's available there. So it is now available, I think, in 8 states, and hopefully more and more as we go. But for now, check it out. You can also look on our web pages and see more information about that. So as we head into the question and answers, you guys can keep typing some. We've got a few questions queued up and a few that got emailed in, but if anybody thinks of any more, go ahead and put those in there in the Q&A part. Wanted to mention that it takes substantial time and resources for us to curate this content and gather the people together and do all the things. So if you stand with our mission and would like to see more events like this, I ask that you would consider making a tax-deductible donation to America's Kids Belong. You can just go to our homepage and there's a green donate button. You can click that button and it's pretty easy peasy. And then take your chill pill after that. So we're going to go into the questions, and I have one that was emailed in that I'm going to read first. So any of you panelists that want to have answers to this, go for it. When it comes to dealing with challenging behaviors, what are some good principles for teaching to the behavior instead of punishing or just reacting? So what are some good principles to teach to the behavior?
I would say first, knowing what the behavior is, and that sounds obvious, but it's easy to get caught up in this thing of you were good, you were bad, you were mean. So you're being disrespectful. Instead of being vague about it, talking about exactly what the behavior is, and instead of saying disrespectful, you could say you rolled your eyes or you stomped your feet. So just labeling what the behavior is and being careful not to mix that up with labeling the kid. Instead of you're being rude, you could say, well, you just described what they did. You stomped your feet, you rolled your eyes. So start by knowing what the behavior actually is. And what was the rest of the question, Tracy? Like,
Instead of punishing or just reacting.
yeah. I mean, we hit on some of this, and I'm sure these other guys have things to say about it, but I always would try to make the consequence have something to do with the behavior. And also try to remember, like, a consequence doesn't necessarily have to feel like a punishment. It's a time you need to be teaching skills. If they don't have the skill to do something, even if you could say, well, they know better, they know they're not supposed to do that, but they need to be building skills. And so if we're not teaching those, then we have unrealistic expectations. So hopefully some of what I said made sense, and I'll be interested to hear what these other guys say too.
That's great. Anybody else want to add anything?
Yeah, not every behavior needs a consequence, right? Sometimes it's just helping them regulate and moving on and praising them for being able to regulate. You know, if we can just teach them how to regulate their emotions and get brought back down to that state and being able to do that themselves, to me, that's like the biggest win. So it's not correcting every single little thing that they do. It's helping them get to that state of regulation. So yeah, we don't need to correct everything, but giving them tons of praise when they do get it right. Like if there's a certain behavior that keeps happening, you watch for the one time they do it correctly and you make it a big deal.
Yeah, that's good.
That's great. That's great. So another one here is, what does it look like to help kids with so much lingering uncertainty and emotionally unsettling transitions? For example, whether they'll reunify or not, and there's continuing to have visits with bio parents. So school changes, all the different things. So what does it look like to help them when there's so much lingering uncertainty going on?
Yeah, for me, I mean, we have a child in our home now that there is that, and it's been an opportunity to, I really like what Danny said, but I mean, we're never vague. And it's a time to come alongside them and do what I think we all unofficially or officially take an oath to do, is to advocate for that child for reunification, right? And say, hey, I know you want to go back, and I want that for you too. So in that particular example, I think it might have even been last night. It might have been an hour and a half long conversation. It takes a long time sometimes, but just to listen and be willing to say, yeah, I agree with you, and I'll do anything I can to come alongside you. So not to beat around the bush and say, well, yeah, I don't know, or I know mom's saying that, or just be there and hear what they're saying, because that is our goal, right? Is to reunify when it's possible. I don't know if anyone has any other thoughts to that particular example.
Yeah, and we don't get to make that choice, right? And so we say that all the time, like, hey, bud, I hear that this is what you want, and keep reminding them, like, I hear you. But unfortunately, we don't get to make that decision, but we're going to be here to support you no matter how long this takes, no matter what this looks like. We've got your back. We're by you. You know, just reassuring them over and over and over that you're here. You can be a constant for as long as that needs to be.
That's
Yeah,
great.
I love that. I was just going to add to that point, and that's what makes foster care so incredibly complex and just so tough, because it's like, you know, like these stories, you don't know necessarily if you're going home. You don't, you know, at some point the case could turn. You could now be up for adoption. You're not going to reunify. So how do you even grieve? You know, there's a suspension of even what emotions do I use? Like, so you're kind of stuck there. And so I love what Courtney, you said of like, it's kind of this being that stable place and footing to go like, it is shaky ground and I'm with you shaking with it, but I'm still here with you too. I mean, that just seems like a big part of it.
Mm-hmm. So off of that one a little bit, there's one that was thrown up here. At what point are you enabling the bio parents rather than walking the road of justifiable reunification?
I think our biggest thing is we have to remember that's not our job.
Mm-hmm.
That is not our job as foster parents, is to make those decisions. And we might have our opinions, right? But our job is to walk with the kids, and our job is to support the kids. no matter what that looks like. And it is hard. It is hard when you have your opinion, and it might not be the opinion of the guardian ad litem. It might not be the opinion of the judge. But ultimately, that is not our decision. And we don't have to wear that on our shoulders. We have enough to wear on our shoulders, and it's not that.
Might be another one of those paradigm shifts, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's good. That
Yeah.
question makes me think too about how important it is how you portray your feelings towards the kids' bio parents. Anything that you do that can be misconstrued or that they see correctly, that they don't feel like you're on their parent's side is not going to be great for the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are great points. What questions should you ask before taking a child for respite care? What are some good questions to ask?
I guess I would ask a lot of questions. I would ask the worker just full transparency, because you don't want to be in a situation that's not healthy for the child, and the child doesn't want to be there if you're not prepared either. Just to make it a successful small respite time. Um, you know, that's your job, I guess, to ask. And because the worker wants it to be successful as well. So, but I would have I always have a list of questions, just from experience, because when I didn't ask questions, then it was surprise, and that usually wouldn't matter, but it makes it a lot more successful experience when I'm prepared.
Yeah.
So if I'm not prepared, then it's not successful, even though it would have been a yes most of the time anyways, but not knowing ahead of time makes it a lot more challenging.
Yeah. Can you give a few examples to some of those questions that you would ask, and knowing that typically you would be caring for older kids? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just behaviors in general, medications is important. Um, the type of corrective process they do in their regular foster home. Um, because when they go back to their regular foster home, we don't want their behaviors changed, or like at respite, I was able to do this, and then it's a whole, so just a lot of questions on how they do their parenting as well is, I think, really important. So
Great. Yeah. Bobby, were you about to say something?
Oh, I was just asking, I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but Terry, would you almost encourage people to err on the side of asking questions? Because the worst thing they can do is say, I just can't tell you that. I mean, that's a little bit of our experience, but I think oftentimes if they know it, they're going to tell you. A couple other specific questions would be diets, hey, do they require special diet that we have to be aware of? And I think there's an elephant in the room: past sexual trauma, past physical trauma. I mean, I just would say, don't be afraid to ask those questions. And if they can't tell you, they won't tell you. I don't know if anyone has any pushback to that or not.
Yeah, that's great. I think of also the difference of if it's a caseworker reaching out to you, or if it's another foster parent reaching out to you. So if you're getting it directly from the foster parent, just even things just like if you're caring for anybody's kid, like their bedtime routine, how can I help this child keep their normal routine if possible, and stuff like that. So just knowing those things. What are they scared of, or whatever, depending on the ages. Great answers. Go ahead.
I was just going to say one that I've seen missed sometimes is, are there any adults or family members that they definitely are not supposed to be talking to?
That's great. Yeah. Yeah.
Because they'll sometimes if they're with someone new, they'll say, is it okay if I call my mom? And you're like, oh, it sounds great. So just knowing who they can and can't speak to.
That's great. Yeah. Good thoughts. Another person has said that they would love to hear anybody's experience on the panel of fostering children of color.
That was actually something I was going to talk about earlier and I forgot. So a big thing, and I feel like I'm putting a lot of pressure on the foster parents, but again, being the advocate, you need to find the resources. You need to find the cultural outlets. Be assertive. And the thing is, I'm not an assertive person, but I have to put that hat on even when it's uncomfortable. Our very first placement was 2 beautiful little Black girls, and I had never cared for Black hair before. And they came to us like with a need, a major hair need. I went to Walmart that night, and I literally was walking up and down the aisles, not sure what to do. And I saw a Black lady, and I approached her and said, I need your help. And that is not my personality at all, but I just had to do it. I had to do it in the moment, and it helped. And we actually grew this relationship. And she even did the girls' hair. We've adopted a couple of Black girls, and she started doing their hair. So just put yourself out there, but again, find those cultural things, not just hair, but the foods or the cultural celebrations, and be willing to do those things. Find them in your community. If your community doesn't have them, then just bring them to your house and do them in your home.
That's great.
Yeah, and even like holidays that, as maybe that we need to lean into more and like celebrate more that, maybe the African American community would more or whatever. Like, it's huge.
Yeah. That's great. Another person has written in saying we've had the opportunity to foster children who are less than 10 years old, and our foster license is currently open to a wider range. Are there any recommendations for determining if you would be a good fit for fostering teens? We are also considering teens who are available for adoption. So what are some thoughts on that?
Terry, you do a lot of teens, don't you?
Yeah, teens are the best. Go for the teens. Yeah. They're self-sufficient. And I think teenagers are great to take in because they've lived a life, and they have experiences you can learn from. They got personalities already formed, and just and then you can be there if they age out. You can be there for them, or the ones you were speaking of that maybe are ready for adoption. Then you have that opportunity, which is amazing. But yeah, I definitely encourage people. Teenagers is definitely a need, at least in our state in South Dakota, a huge need for teenagers to be fostered. And I think we need to, with teenagers too, we need to realize, they always have the bad, like rap, I guess, of maybe being troublemakers. But we need to realize that, like we've talked about all night tonight, is they're coming from a place of trauma. So it's not them being the trouble. It's what they've lived through, and the trauma, and how they're dealing with it. It's not bad kids. It's most likely just not quite the best parenting is what brings them into care.
Yeah.
And I just want to add, because I've heard Terry say this in a conversation before, I think it's fascinating as well, is that, and that we don't see the other side. We're talking about paradigm shifts tonight, but like you've talked about the teenagers that have come to you and they're scared to death of foster parents, or, whoa, what's going to happen in this foster home? So it's like, kind of goes both ways as well, the perception.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And you can always start with respite, just like if you're considering it, I would say do a few weekends of respite, a few weeks of respite for some teenagers, and see what that's like if you've never parented that age. And obviously it's different in respite versus full-time fostering, but I think it'll give you a little taste of what it would be like.
That's a good point. I think of also that there's some people that I know that haven't had teens of their own, or haven't hardly been around teenagers. And so I'd say maybe sometimes think that through, of if it's like going to be a big leap for you to even just understand, oh gosh, how do I help protect kids when they have technology? How do I lock down my internet? And so then just lean into some people around you that have teenagers and ask lots of questions so that you can just wrap your mind, because it's a whole different layer. I've heard 2 people say this last week, that when you're caring for little kids, parenting, foster parenting, whatever, it's physically draining or exhausting, whatever. When you're caring for teenagers, it's emotionally a whole different thing. And that's it. It just takes a lot more brain power and emotions. And maybe it's not poopy diapers and waking up in the middle of the night, but it's a lot of other things. So I never thought that I would foster an older kid. I remember telling my husband, I was like, I think we need to do toddlers when we were doing foster parent training. I was like, how could we ever bond with a big kid? My 6 foot tall, almost 15-year-old moved in was our first placement. Yep. And it's been a wild journey, but awesome. All right. Well, those are the questions that we had for tonight. This has been awesome. Thank you all for sharing all of that. Thank you everyone for your thoughtful questions tonight. Remember to check your inbox. There will be a survey. Yeah, it'll get sent to you in an email, and we look forward to seeing you at some of the upcoming events. Please feel free to reach out to any of us. We have a short video in closing. It's about a 2-minute video that I will play, and feel free to stay and watch that or hop off either way. It'll take me just a second to play it. Thank you all for being here.
Something happens to you when you don't belong. I can't explain it really. But if you felt it, you know. There are over 400,000 of us in the U.S. foster care system. 100,000 are available for adoption and are waiting for a forever family. The rest of us kids are waiting to be reunited with our birth families and just need a love.
Sorry, was it not playing?
To you when you
Yep.
don't belong. I can't explain it really. But if you felt it, you know.
I think you need to
There are
drag it
over
on.
400,000 of us in the U.S. foster care system. 100,000 are available for adoption and are waiting for a forever family. The rest of us kids are waiting to be reunited with our birth families and just need a loving foster family while we wait. Without a family, without a place to belong, it feels like no one knows your story. No one really sees you. You feel invisible. You probably don't know how much we need you, but we do. There aren't enough families to love us, to help us heal, to call us theirs. And the truth is, bad things happen when kids don't have a place to belong. Every year, 26,000 leave foster care when they're grown up and still without a family. Half never even got to graduate from high school. Others end up homeless, in trouble with the law, trafficked. It's a big problem, but the solution is so easy, even us kids know it. The solution is you. So it's time you met us, time you really got to know us. You'll see, we are brave, we are beautiful, we are worthy of belonging. The solution is you. Will you see our faces? Will you tell our stories? Will you help us belong?
Night.
And everyone.